What's been the proudest achievement?
Watching those young people flourish. We really need to change our secondary education system and create more opportunities and more pathways for young people.
How can industry do better?
Those young people are fragile. When you've got an apprentice, you need to be coaching and mentoring.
You've also got the other side of the coin for an SME is that you would spend 4 years training a young person and then you worry that that young person is then going to go and get a very good job somewhere else. But actually they are investing into manufacturing.
We used to have these young people come through from the alternative provisions into the centre and they were at rock bottom. They felt like failures, they'd been kicked out of school, everyone was told them you'll never achieve anything. And I've seen so many young people have light bulb moments and it's just brilliant. But how many young people are not getting those light bulb moments because they're not getting those opportunities?
A huge thank you to this week's sponsor, Beckhoff Automation. Beckhoff implements open automation systems using proven PC-based control technology. Find out more about Beckhoff in the link below. Also, thank you to you for watching. Please like, subscribe, it helps us grow the channel. Enjoy this episode.
I'm Fiona McGarry, I'm Sector Engagement Manager at Enginuity.
So what does that mean? Who are Enginuity and what does sector engagement mean?
So Enginuity are a charity that support manufacturing and engineering companies identify innovative ways to reduce the skills gap.
Okay, so what does a day-to-day look like for you?
So it varies. So I manage the engagement team and our job is to go out there, meet with engineering and manufacturing companies, attend events and talk to them about what their challenges are. And we've got a group of projects that we're managing that are looking at ways to reduce the skills gap. But then we're also looking for new opportunities and new projects and ideas that we can develop. So it's going out, meeting with companies and listening to them and identifying solutions that we can create.
Okay.
So sometimes it could be speaking at an event with loads of manufacturing engineering companies, or could be going to an event with D&T teachers, or it could be going out to schools. I'm doing less schools work than I did in my previous roles, but we are still doing that piece around showcasing engineering and manufacturing careers.
Okay. So there's a lot there that we can unpack as we go through. We'll start with where did you grow up and what did you want to be when you were older?
I grew up in Solihull, so not too far from here, and I wanted to be a criminal psychologist.
Okay, why? How? What?
Because of Cracker. You probably don't know what Cracker is, but it was a TV programme at the time, and everyone loved it, and he was a criminal psychologist. So I did my GCSEs and then I went to sixth form and did my A-levels, one of which was psychology, and really, really loved it. So then I went to university to do psychology in Manchester and realised then that I couldn't be a criminal psychologist because I don't like blood, and realised there'd be a lot of crime scenes and I'm really claustrophobic and there'd be a lot of time spent in prisons. So I realised then actually...
Doesn't show you that on the TV.
No. So I realised then it perhaps wasn't the career for me. Okay. So then looked at other pathways I could do around psychology, one of which was educational psychology. Yep. So looked into that, but in order to do that, you had to teach for 3 years before you could convert. And I didn't want to be a teacher, did not want to work with young people. And the only way, because of the A-level options I'd chosen, was to do secondary. I probably could have done it if it was primary, but the thought of dealing with young people and teenagers, I was just like, there's no way in a million years. And then ironically, 6 years later, that's what I ended up doing. So, and now I absolutely love that age group, far more than primary. And so, yeah. Okay.
So what was your first job? Did you have a job whilst you were studying?
Yeah, so since I was 16, I've had jobs. So waitressing, I used to be a silver service waitress, which is brilliant. So I used to work at a hotel, and then we used to go and do sporting events around the country at weekends and holidays. And then while I was at uni, I did call centre work and bar work and lots of different roles.
Are there any moments in any of them jobs that have stuck with you?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy the bar work. I worked in a really rough pub in Manchester and had things thrown at me and everything. Oh, no. So, but I enjoyed the waitressing. I enjoyed meeting people, and it's the team that you work with, isn't it? So that's what we used to have such good fun. So there'd be a team of us, and yeah, that was the best bit. I just love working with other people.
Yep. So how did you go from those part-time jobs to your career in manufacturing or education?
So at the end of I decided then, everyone was saying IT was the way forward, and there was all these jobs in IT. So I did a master's in computer science, and it was the worst year of my life. It was so hard, and I was Java programming, and it was so boring, and I realised it wasn't for me, but had to complete it. And at the end of that, I was going to move to London and get a job in something to do with the skills that I developed in London. And my best friend didn't want me to move to London. She wanted me to stay in Solihull. And she saw a job working at a careers hub. And there was an ESF funded project teaching IT to kids that had been expelled from school. So I applied for it, didn't really think I'd get anywhere, and got it. And that was just what changed everything. So I did that for 3 years and absolutely loved it. So young people who'd been excluded from school used to come in, and I'd teach them IT skills, and it was just really rewarding. Absolutely loved it. Saw that these young people weren't failures. They just didn't suit that particular environment they were in. And really, really good. And then I saw an advert then, because we managed the education partnership centres at Land Rover. So a job opportunity came up there. I'd grown up in Solihull, where Land Rover was everything, and Rover down the road. One of my friends at college had gone and done an apprenticeship in purchasing. And I was like, why would you want to go and work there? It's who'd want to go and work in car manufacturing? But anyway, I applied for this job, got this job. And the first day I walked into that manufacturing environment, it was just brilliant. Loved it. Never looked back.
Do you have any role models them days?
My dad was an engineer, to be fair, and I suppose he didn't really push it. So I never thought of going into it. Engineering or manufacturing did not appeal to me at all. I think because I was female as well, and it was very much seen. And I think when I started my role at Land Rover, Rover had just closed down, so it was massive in our area. So many people had lost their jobs. And I remember doing my presentation for the role, and it was like, as a parent, why would you want your young person to go into a sector that looked like it was in decline, and people were losing their jobs, and the whole of Longbridge was like kind of decimated. And but yeah.
Okay. What's been the proudest achievement?
Seeing the impact of the programs that I've developed over my time, and watching those young people flourish. So I did Young Women in the Know when I was at Jaguar Land Rover, and I follow a number of those girls now, and they're just doing amazing in their careers. So I just think seeing the difference with a little bit of mentoring and a bit of encouragement that can be made, that's what I just love.
So tell us about that program then. What was different about that? Because I've seen one of the posts that you did.
Yeah.
There's a young lady at Audi now.
Yeah, she's brilliant, Jessica, yeah. And she's just... So when I was at Jaguar Land Rover, they were saying, there was no females coming through the apprenticeship schemes. There was some coming through graduate schemes, but apprenticeships, there just weren't. So it was about 2012, and only 5% of the apprenticeship scheme was female. And that is the one thing about Jaguar Land Rover. No matter what has gone on in terms of economics and decline, they've always invested in their apprenticeship scheme. Every year they've had an intake regardless. And that was really, really good. And so, they just didn't get any females. So we worked together, and I managed the education partnership centres across all the sites. There's 5 sites. And we developed this program called Young Women in the Know. And girls would come to us when they were 15. So at the end of year 10 in their summer holidays, they'd come to us for a week, and they'd spend a week with us in the Education Partnership Centre. We'd teach them about manufacturing and engineering. We'd take them on a tour of one of the manufacturing sites, and then either to Gaydon or Whitley to see the other aspects of design and everything and engineering. And then they'd spend 3 days with a female in the business, and they'd be mentored, and they'd see what that female does. And then at the end of it, they would then be able to apply for the Jaguar Land Rover apprenticeship scheme. But as the scheme went on, Young Women in the Know, they then got to sit their assessment centre at the end of it. Okay. So I think it was about 2 or 3 years in, we changed it. So at the end of that week, they went and did their assessment centre. And then by the time I left in 2018, 55% of the intake that year was female, which was just amazing. And that was across all the different sites. And I then went to work at Make UK, which was the training centre for Jaguar Land Rover, and they'd never had so many females. And like, you'd walk into classrooms and there was just JLR females everywhere. It was just brilliant.
So that part is the proudest moment, walking back into that?
Yeah.
Okay. Where does that passion come from? What was the light bulb moment?
I think walking into that manufacturing environment and just seeing all that goes involved in making a car, the fact that you had the press shop where it just came in as a sheet of metal and then 2 days later it was going out as a £70,000 Range Rover.
Yep.
And I just think it's just, and so we used to bring kids as young as 7 into the factory, and just seeing them and them seeing the robots and them understanding the whole process. And I think what was unique about Jaguar Land Rover at the time was every car going down the track was completely different. So some manufacturers would build 100 red Fiestas one day and 100 blue Fiestas the next day. Every car was completely different. And I just love the fact that the doors would go off at the beginning of, after they'd come out of the paint shop, they'd go off somewhere else. Then they'd be in trim and vinyl, putting everything together. And then all of a sudden those doors would come back, and it was just, everything that was involved, it was just amazing.
Yeah, so there's a bit there that's going in my mind. How do you put that passion into the next generation? Because like that one hub that you created was fantastic. How do we do that at scale? How do we get tens of thousands of young people to get that passion? Because it's an amazing industry.
Oh yeah, amazing. And it's an easier sell than some of the other industries in manufacturing and engineering. And we used to have 20,000 young people come through those centres every year.
Wow.
So across the 5 centres, we had 20,000 young people, and it was just amazing. And they were from 7 through to university. And all of those young people then would obviously go and talk to other young people. And then unfortunately, during COVID, all those centres shut. And now they don't have centres at any of the sites.
Okay.
And they do a lot of stuff online.
It's not the same.
No, not at all. And work experience, so we used to do work experience. We managed all the work experience programs, which were brilliant at Jaguar Land Rover. And we did Sons and Daughters to Work Day every year. And that was just amazing. Young people coming in and spending time with their parents. And we just did so much. We did an early service leavers program. So young people who'd been discharged from the military early came and did programs with us. And we did a HITS project with rugby, so disengaged young people. And the thing is, though, we were lucky at the time. There was massive job opportunities. So you were getting these young people in and you weren't selling them a dream, because there were actual roles at the end of it. It's sometimes a lot harder when you show them it and then there aren't any roles suitable for them, particularly those that couldn't have applied for an apprenticeship scheme, because that's the thing with Jaguar Land Rover. They have a really high standard. They get loads of applications. So you're really fortunate to get on it. But we were able to signpost these young people onto shop floor opportunities where they didn't have those barriers. But it is about getting young people into the environments. Seeing it on like TikTok and stuff, another thing I'm passionate about, is good because it gets that mind thinking, but nothing beats getting them into those environments and seeing it and realising it's everywhere in the UK. I mean, so Make UK do National Manufacturing Day. You can put in your postcode, and somewhere within a 20-mile radius of you is going to be somewhere that you can go and see actual manufacturing. And
what date is?
26th September.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm gonna make sure we get this episode out so people know that date. Done.
So, but yeah, 26th September, and there's a website, just National Manufacturing Day, and it is like lush down in Cornwall, Portsmouth, Poole. They've got their doors open, and I remember because I had to put all the map together last year, there's a spiral staircase manufacturer in Cornwall that opens. I mean, just amazing, cool things.
It's exactly what kids need to see.
Everything's made, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly what kids need to. They need to know that everything that they use and touch daily is manufactured. It doesn't just appear out of thin air. Someone needs to make it and design it, sell it. Yeah. There's a whole supply chain of everything. Yeah.
And it's easy to think of the car manufacturers.
Yeah.
But there is just so much more, and often the supply chain get forgotten. And we try to really push the supply chain as well, because each part, there is a supply chain involved in that. So Lear Seats used to do quite a bit of stuff. So some of the girls on Young Women used to go to Lear Seats and see that, because it's all integral to making that amazing product at the end.
Yeah. So that's one day of the year.
Yeah.
How can industry do better?
I just think it's and particularly with SMEs, they're time poor, aren't they? It's a real issue for them. But then they'll go to their local secondary in year 11 for one of these careers events, and then they question the fact that no young person's interested in their opportunities. And you can't just rock up in year 11. No. It's that long game. And so I say, I know you're time poor, but if you could just give one day a year to your local secondary and one day a week to your local primary, you will build that. And it's a long game, and you've got to be doing primary, but you will build up that awareness of your brand and those opportunities and what you do. And so it is about investing that time. And don't just go to the best school with the highest grades or the best Ofsted report. Often those schools that aren't doing perhaps so well at Ofsted will love that opportunity. Yeah. And those young people will be brilliant for your organisation. But you've got to get involved, you've got to give that time, because, and I don't really necessarily agree with those careers fairs, and I've not really seen much success, particularly for SMEs. So when Jaguar Land Rover turn up, all the young people go.
Of course, yeah.
They've got amazing freebies, amazing polished brochures, and they're all swept up in it. And if you're just a little SME, they're not really going to come over to you. So what we did when I was at Make is we launched the Future Makers Show, and that was absolutely brilliant. We ran it the last 2 years, and we got the IMAX Theatre at Millennium Point, and we put on a day where we had local young people from a variety of different schools come in, and we put a show on. So they arrived, went straight into the IMAX Theatre, and even though they're local to there, some of them have never been in it, and the screen is just amazing. And then we just blew them away with videos and TikToks and grime music, and they watched this show for an hour, and we explained about manufacturing and engineering. We had some of our amazing apprentices come on and speak to them, talk about their experiences, how they went through it all. We had some employers from SMEs come in and speak about their products and what they offer. And then at the end of the hour, they went downstairs, and that's where the careers fair was. Okay. And that's where the SMEs were. And they understood then, because I think careers fairs are just running around getting freebies with your mates. Yeah. But they understood, and then our apprentices were just like movie stars. It was just ridiculous. So, and they were going up and speaking to the apprentices. Which is perfect. That's exactly what you need. Yeah. There was one lad, a black lad from Jaguar Land Rover, and he's from Handsworth, and a lot of the young people were from local areas like that. And he spoke about how the fact it got to 16 and he could have got involved with gangs, and all his friends were getting involved with gangs, and he just thought, no. And he did the Jaguar Land Rover apprenticeship scheme, and now he's earning whatever he's earning. He's doing this amazing role, and the kids were just, and then I had all these teachers coming up to me afterwards going, can he come and speak in our school? Because he just, he's recognisable, and I can stand up and speak, and the kids aren't particularly interested. But those relatable role models, that's what I'm just so passionate about showcasing. I'm sure everything I do, every young person has someone who looks like them, sounds like them, or is from where they are, because that has the biggest impact. Yep. We had Aisha, she's an Asian young female, talking about welding and how much she loved welding, and these Asian girls came up to me afterwards and they were like, we never thought we could do anything like that. And it's just so powerful. That's rewarding though. Oh, massively. For just the organising, for you. And seeing them, and they're all going up and speaking to them and stuff, and the apprentices love it, and they love the fact that just them being themselves can make such a difference and such an impact. I spoke at a graduate event recently, and my closer about inspiring the next generation was actually you in this room. You're the closest thing to relevant that these kids are going to see. You're the ones that now need to go and convince another generation of kids to think about manufacturing. Because I'm too old now, and everyone else that's in industry, to these kids, I said recently I did an assembly to 300 year 7s, and they looked at me like, who's this old guy that's coming off the street? And I can remember quite clearly sitting in that position not so long ago. So it's trying to find people within industry that
have the same passion,
Yeah.
and then, you know, believe in that social good that they can inspire kids, because they will inspire kids. It's a natural progression for them. So that Future Maker, is that rolled out now? Is that a national thing, or was it a one-off?
So we just did it. We did it 2 years ago, and then we did it on National Manufacturing Day last year. I don't know if it's happening this year, but it was just, you just wowed them, and it just that, and you can't not wow somebody with a big iMac screen, to be honest with you. And I'm really passionate also about showcasing real manufacturing environments. Hate stock images, refuse to use stock images in anything I put out, because they're overused, it's just not real. So even though I was at Make, I've left Make now, a lot of my posts have pictures of the young people I work with at Make, because they're real apprentices, they've got real stories, and I just think that,
So what have you learnt from Make that you're transferring over in your role at Enginuity?
About those relatable role models. So we're doing a project at the moment called the Dream Gap, because my other passion is the females, and the fact that when I was at Jaguar Land Rover in 2010, 10% of the manufacturing workforce was female. Then we went to 2022 and 16.5% of the manufacturing of engineers were female. So we'd moved 6.5% in 12 years. So slow. And then this year we dropped, and that's what I just literally cannot believe. So we've gone from 16.5% to 15.8% of engineers in the UK.
Is there any indication why?
Retention. So I think we are all doing amazing work around attraction. There are so many STEM initiatives out there. There are so many opportunities. People are primary engineer, different things like that, going into primaries, secondaries. We are really attracting more and more. Not enough, but we are attracting more. There's real momentum there. We are not retaining those female engineers. So the Engineering UK, the research that came out is between 35 and 44, we're losing female engineers. They're dropping out. And that's huge. So to have such slow decline from 10 to 16.5 over that length of time, and then to now this year see a drop, it's just devastating. It really is. So
what can manufacturers do better then to keep that retention?
So we've been looking at it. So it came out a couple of months ago, and there's lots of different people looking at it. There's Sally Twistle, I think she's called, on she used to be a Rolls-Royce engineer. She's doing some brilliant work on LinkedIn around it. And I was at an event recently as well. So Uwanda, so she does brilliant work. And she did the Ripple Effect conference, which was on a couple of weeks ago. And that was around diversity and females and supporting female engineers. It was in Coventry. And she did a dinner on the Saturday evening, and I went along to that. And I was chatting to Nikki. So she's from the Association for Black and Ethnic Minority Engineers. Brilliant organisation, brilliant events. I was chatting to her about it, and we were saying, there was a young female engineer saying, you know, I do want to go into the sector and everything, but I don't understand why people are leaving. And it's very easy for people to say between 35 and 44, it's females having children, and often there's caring responsibilities for parents as well. But it's not just that. There's a number of other factors. And it is, I think, they're not supported into those leadership roles. So it's, you know, they can't see those females above them. They can't see that pathway. And when I was chatting to Nikki, it was really interesting what she said. She's an engineer, and she said she thinks a lot of it is you get to that age, you're more confident in yourself, you're more aware, and you just think, I'm not putting up with this anymore.
You expect
the
that.
Microaggressions, the things that go on, and they still go on. I mean, it was awful when I first started at Jaguar Land Rover, and it's improved tremendously. But there is just still those undertones, and you just think, actually, I can't bother with this anymore. And maybe that, I think that has a lot to play in it.
Do you have any stories from the early days of JLR? I'll tell you why I ask. The episode that's up now is a lady called Jackie Hambry, and she spoke about when she started in sales. There was a company that used to refuse her through the door on a certain shift that they called the animal shift, that they wouldn't even let their own female employees on the shop floor that day.
Yeah, no, there was some, yeah. It's just, but it was challenged a little bit, and then it really started getting challenged, and then it really, really improved. But what surprised me, I think, the most, and we were on about, I'm involved in a women in engineering panel within Enginuity now, and there's some older ladies that are on that panel. And I think what's really interesting, and it's when you speak about it and you realise and you reflect, it was women as well that were, there was a time women not supporting other women. It feels like it's a competition.
Yeah. And
there's only a few of you can do well.
Yeah, when there's so few job opportunities.
And it's just, I think that's what disappoints you the most, is the toxic behaviours of other females. And it's about pulling that ladder up and thinking, no. And I think I'm so mindful in that, in everything I do, in championing, because, you know, it isn't a competition. We need more. We need to get to 50% eventually. So we should be celebrating and championing and supporting those other females. And I think that's change. I think there is, but there is still some toxicity around not supporting other females. And we do this big piece about male allies and what can we do around male allies. But we need female allies as well, and we need to be supporting those females.
Yeah. So what can people do watching this to support Enginuity?
So we're launching an alliance so we've done a soft launch. We're launching it properly in November. And we want to get that community of SMEs and larger organisations that can come together and that we can work together to challenge these issues, that we can reduce the skills gap, but we can also look at supporting more diversity within the sector. So that's females, that's GEM, that's, you know, those with neurodiversity, because there's so many opportunities and we need to ensure that, you know, so neurodiverse young people make excellent engineers. Absolutely brilliant. I'm a governor at an alternative provision, and that's my passion, those overlooked young people. And a lot of those are neurodiverse, and that's why they've not been able to sustain that normal secondary school environment. So, and we're seeing a massive growth in homeschooled young people. So when I was at Make, I did a project with homeschooled young people, and a lot of those are neurodiverse. And they just make amazing engineers. But I think as an SME employer or somebody else, you'll go, oh, it's too much hard work.
Yeah.
I don't really want to go down that route. That's just going to create work for me. But if you can understand, and we're doing a research project at the moment in Enginuity around neurodiversity and neurodiverse engineers, and if we can create support packages and understanding and awareness, you've got brilliant talent coming through.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that, you know, it's such a broad stroke in criteria that you need A to C, 5 of them, plus then your A levels. Well, there's a lot of kids out there that will have not, you know, enjoyed school or had a hard time through school that would be fantastic hands-on engineers or work in a workshop or whatever that job role might be, but they don't get the opportunity to go through the door and even see what manufacturing is.
We've got a broken secondary education system. I think primary isn't too bad, but secondary, and I think that we've got an opportunity now with the new government, and they are doing a review, and there's some brilliant people doing amazing work around it. So I'm also involved with the D&T Association. Tony Ryan is doing brilliant work around really pushing that qualification, because it's fallen out of schools. The number of schools delivering D&T is just reducing and reducing. Interestingly, a lot of private schools ensure they deliver it, because when you do D&T GCSE, it puts you in one of the top percentages of earners as you go on through life. There's a stat around it, and that is a brilliant subject for young people, because it teaches resilience, it teaches problem solving, creativity, which what engineering is, and it's ensuring those subjects are available to young people, because they're just put through, taught stuff that's irrelevant, and they've got no employability skills when they come out at the end of it. And I think at 14, there should be far more vocational routes for young people. The young people at our alternative provision in Birmingham, they do bricklaying and they absolutely love it. And, you know, they're hands-on. My son's the same. He's dyslexic, and he really struggles in school, hates that classroom environment, hates just learning stuff just to then in 16 sit an exam on it, and what have you actually learned? And I think we really need to change our secondary education system and create more opportunities and more pathways for young people to experience. And I always say it's about informed decisions. So even if not everyone's going to want to be an engineer, but you need to understand what you're switching off from. So it's ensuring young people are making informed decisions. But then the other thing is now, it's no longer a career for life. People at Jaguar Land Rover are doing 50, 60 years. They've been there all their lives. And I was at an event the other week, and this woman, she was saying it's a life of careers now. And I think that's brilliant. And I think that's what we need to instill in young people, that try things. Just because you do something doesn't mean you have to then do that for the rest of your life. And there is those pivots and those opportunities. We found more and more young people when I was at Make coming through to do the apprenticeship scheme in their mid to late 20s, because I think they've gone and done other careers, tried other things, and then thought, actually, engineering sounds really, really good. And I think you're quite fortunate with engineering apprenticeships. It's paid better than other apprenticeships. So it enabled people who had got mortgages, who had got families, that they could do that time and they could change careers. So there's far more career changes coming into engineering.
You've also got that window of, I don't know how many years, but you choose your GCSEs and people expect you to know what job you're going to go into. You don't know, so you go and do your A-levels and you pick A-levels, maybe 3 subjects that are very broad or easier to do to get through to university, to then do 3 or 4 years at university and still not know what you want to do. And then all of a sudden you're in your early 20s, people that have got apprenticeships are into a career and you're thinking, where do I go from here? Because, I have this conversation quite often actually around degrees and is there a value in the degree versus an apprenticeship? And I didn't hate school. I was okay at school. I didn't go and do A-levels because I just couldn't face going back. But I went through a period where I was just doing part-time jobs. I didn't know what to do. I grew up around engineering, so it was a little bit different to being switched off from it. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. It was only because I fell into an apprenticeship and I thought, actually, this is cool. Like, there's some really cool technology and you're seeing customers. And then you develop skills that aren't necessarily the hands-on stuff. It's talking to people, it's communication, working in teams that I could have then gone and worked in another industry, that's fine. It's just getting the kids to get them skills in that time period where they don't know what job they want to do, because they're transferable across everything. But how do you teach them that? Because they're stuck in the education system.
But this is the issue. It's about, there's still this perception that apprenticeships at level 2 and level 3 are for those who are a bit thick and those who aren't really going to go anywhere in life. And it's slowly changing. But I don't think degree apprenticeships have helped with that. I'm not a mad fan of degree apprenticeships. And I think they're the apprenticeships that are now seen as acceptable to parents. They're quite proud of telling people that their child is doing a degree apprenticeship. But we need to be celebrating every apprenticeship. And when I was at this event the other week, there was a guy saying that, when somebody is their first in their family to go to university and get a degree, everyone talks about it and everyone's like, how amazing. Why aren't we celebrating the first in the family to do an apprenticeship? We really need to be educating people on those choices, and schools and all the key influencers and teachers and everyone need to understand, and particularly within engineering, the best route is to come in at level 3. There's no other way really, in terms of if you want to be getting that breadth and that experience and earning and not getting into debt, come in at level 3, go and you can still go on and do a degree. A lot of the young people that I work with have gone on to do level 4 or level 5 qualifications, but coming in at that level 3, you get hands-on, you get the basics and you learn, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's the route that I did. I did level 3 and then an employer paid for me to do HNC.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
And it's just, whereas the degree apprenticeship, I just don't think is as good. I think, for those, and you can do it from 16. So why don't you just not go and do the A-levels as the route, go and do an apprenticeship? Because even at the end of those 4 years, if you don't want to then do it, you're in no debt, you've got some brilliant qualifications, brilliant life skills, you can then go on to do something else. But it's those parents, those key influencers, and those teachers. So Careers and Enterprise do a brilliant scheme that they launched 2 years ago that I was involved in, where these teacher insight days, because teachers are massive influencers, and what they do is the school will have like 6 inset days a year. On one of the inset days, the whole school, all the teachers go out into industry, and it's just brilliant. And I followed some teachers from Northfield who went into Autodesk. Oh my goodness, it was just amazing. And they went into Autodesk and they saw everything that was involved. They met some apprentices, and I had some maths teachers with me, and they'd been maths teachers all their lives. They'd never spent any time in industry. And they realised then real life examples And these girls were on about, you know, they'd been switched off from doing different things and they were showcasing, and it was just amazing. And then they built brilliant links. Teachers went to loads of different industries, and then every year they do that now, and they can bring that teaching to life, because young people, they're doing maths GCSE and they struggle with it and they don't get it and they fail and they come out feeling like failures. And then they might want to do a level 2 apprenticeship or a level 3 apprenticeship, but you need your maths. So they teach them functional skills maths, and they get it then, because you're actually applying maths to real life. And it's like, why did no one explain this to me before? Yeah.
So what's your goal then within Enginuity, you personally, over the next 5 to 10 years? What can you have an impact on in industry?
My dream is I go to events and it's not just white middle-aged men. I'm just sick to death of going to conferences, events, everything, and that is all that is there. And it is changing, but it's so slow. And, you know, we need representation. You need diversity of thought, even if it's for no other reason than a business reason, that you understand your customer, you understand your product, and you're creating the right product. But that's not the reason to do it. It's the right thing to do. And I want to be able to go to events and see real diversity in the room. I just think, you know, we need to be getting to parity with females, but we need to also be getting to parity with global ethnic majority young people as well. And seeing that, you know, representing what the UK is. We're a diverse country, and we need to be able to see that within engineering. Engineering is one of the least diverse sectors. And I attended an EDI event recently, and they were on about that. And when you actually see that as fact, it's just,
Okay. Is there anything that's gone wrong in your career that you handled it one way back then that you would handle it different now?
Oh, God.
It's a hard one.
That is a hard one. I suppose there's been some people management kind of things over the time that you might do differently. Because I was quite young, managing a massive team. And it was I was 24 and I came in and I was originally I was only managing the one centre at Solihull. But I had an administrator, James, brilliant. But then I had a team of 15 old guys who'd all retired from Land Rover. They'd worked on the shop floor all of their lives, and then they had me coming in managing them and telling them what to do. And that was one of them, Arthur, he was 70, and it was that's all he'd known. He'd been at Land Rover all his life. And they were having to take the young people out and do the tours, and that's what brought the tours to life, because they'd be going around and they'd be telling their little stories about what went on. So it was just the best. But then when you're trying to explain to them about EDI and, you know, what you can say and what you can't say, and there were some real challenges over that, because they've never known about equality and diversity. They've never known any different. But if you're showcasing and you're representing Jaguar Land Rover and you are standing there, you've got to ensure that you are inclusive and that you are speaking appropriately. So there's lots of difficult conversations around that. But I grew and
So what was the hardest part about managing people?
Just managing people is hard, isn't it? It's just, and I think that's what I also think within all sectors, but within particular in manufacturing engineering, that they're struggling with now with next gen. I go out and I give talks around Generation Alpha and Generation X.
What do they mean?
So Gen Z is 16 to 26-year-olds. And Generation 14. Generation Alpha is 14 and below. So, you know, they're the different terms. You've got millennials and that. And you can't necessarily wrap everyone up in just the years they were born, but there are certain things. And I think, you know, with technology these days, those young people are fragile. They've been through a lot. They've been through COVID. I think young people impacted on COVID far more than any other generation. And their expectations when coming into work are very different. And so you've got Gen Zs coming into the workplace and being managed by people who are 50 odd. There's this gulf, and it's understanding what makes them tick and how to get the best out of them. And I think there's real value, and people don't always do it when you've got an apprentice. you need to be coaching and mentoring. And there are courses available to coach and mentor an apprentice. And I think that's really, really important, because particularly now, Gen Z, 7 in 10 have a mental health issue. And that's just massive. And that is, I think, technology and phones and,
Yeah.
and validation.
Validation's a big thing.
It's massive. And when you've got that young person working for you, you need to keep telling them if they're doing a good job or not. And people of my generation and older, they're like, we just got on with it.
Yep.
No one, but that's how they tick. And they're so used to likes and this, that, and the other. And you need to be supporting them. And, people think differently. People are different. And it's understanding the differences and enabling them to do the best with those differences.
So what do you tell the SMEs to look out for or do or bring into their business to support the young employees?
It's having those mentors and those coaches. Okay. And I think that is the other problem with an SME. They don't have that HR function. They don't have that training and development team. So it's very easy for Jaguar Land Rover. They've got their careers team, they've got their HR functions, they've got that support. And it's, so when I was at Make, and I know some other organisations do it as well, they do this 2-day coaching and mentoring apprenticeship course. And I think you've got to understand the importance of that role when you take on it. You're not just taking on apprentices. It's not cheap labour. It's not something easy to get through. You've got to invest in them. It's a tripart relationship. So you've got your training provider or college, you've got the company, and you've got the young person, and you've got to all work together. And if any of you stop working or, putting effort in, that's when it falls apart. Yeah. And, I used to have so many SMEs come to me and say, I want a female apprentice. I want to do my bit. I want a female apprentice. And you're like, you can't just say you want a female apprentice. One, you've got to have the best candidate, because that's the other thing. And I also feel for the young white male these days as well. And we saw a real shift in that at the centre, because they feel like they've got no opportunity when they're applying for these roles. They're going to be overlooked because people want to increase diversity. Yep. So it needs to be the best candidate. But if you are going to take a female on, have you got the right environment for that female? We had a young Asian female join us, 16. She'd been in an all-girls school all her life. And she came to our centre, and we had 250 young people start, and only 15 were female. So being in the centre was a massive change for her, and she struggled. But then she went out to her company where there were no females, and she really, really, really struggled. And perhaps that wasn't the right time for her to do an apprenticeship. Yep. And perhaps her company wasn't the right company. And it's about, yes, that's great that you want to attract females, but you've got to ensure that you've got that environment that's supportive for them.
Yep. Yeah, there's a bit there that you touched on about an SME not necessarily always wants cheap labour, but if they haven't got the resource as an SME to mentor or to really, train a young person, they want them to come in and within a few months of training do the same work as someone that's been there 10, 15 years, but for a fraction of the price. Now, all you're really doing by doing that is just driving that young person out of industry quicker than they've come in. I've seen it with, I started with another apprentice. He ended up in a garage packing boxes for 6 months. He then decided engineering is not for him. He was going to be a PLC application engineer for a very big brand. He'd have had a fantastic career, but then decided because of the way he was treated that he'd go back to university and become a teacher. So that's a fantastic future engineer that even the big brands get it wrong. That has been driven out of industry. Never mind that young girl that's in a completely different environment that doesn't have mentorship. So it's like you feel for the young person, you feel for the SME, because a lot of them do want to do their bit, but they can't, they haven't got the resource. So you're back to the big brands like Jaguar Land Rover, relying on them to bring through 250 at a time. But that has its flaws, because there's 250 of them in one cohort. You don't have that one-to-one mentorship that you should have at an SME. So there's not really a fit for, there's not a solution for everything.
Well, SMEs struggle with that first year, particularly in manufacturing engineering, because the model that we used to have, and not everyone does this, FE doesn't necessarily do this, is they'd come to our centre for the first 9 months, So we'd front end a lot of the delivery, and then it meant when they left the centre and went to the company and then just came back 1 day a week, they'd got all those skills, they'd been around the different workshops, they'd developed it. But for an SME, they're paying for somebody for 9 months they never see, and that's a real struggle for them. So when I was at Jaguar Land Rover and they stopped, and we've looked at it a few different ways and stuff, they used to do the overtrained apprentice. So if they wanted 200 apprentices, they'd take on 280 apprentices, and they'd all do that first year. And then at the end of the first year, 80 of them would be released, which isn't necessarily the right way of doing it, because are you seen as, if you don't get to stay, you're not as good and whatever. But then they then go and work for the supply chain. So it takes off that first year, because I get it for an SME. If you're paying a wage, and it's not a particularly high wage, but you're paying a wage and you never see that young person, it's a massive ask.
It is, yeah.
And then, so they tend to go to the colleges which do the different model where it is 1 day a week. But then that young person comes to them with very little skills and very little knowledge. So then they are ending up packing boxes.
Spend more time. Yeah. You either give them a crap job, or you spend more time on the shop floor trying to teach them something, and then it takes your experienced person away from the day job. You've also got the other side of the coin for an SME, is that you would spend 4 years training a young person, and then you worry that young person is then going to go and get a very good job somewhere else. So you've also, it's, again, I feel sorry for them, because it's time and money, but actually they are investing into manufacturing in a way. You know, especially them people that I want to employ a female apprentice. Well, that's because it's good for manufacturing. Well, that should be the view for every apprentice you take on. It doesn't matter if they work for you in 5 years' time. You've just trained a fantastic engineer in a time where we are desperate for fantastic engineers. Some of them don't think like that.
And often it's about supporting them when they're in that business. So there's the engineering kite mark, which is a thing that you can go through as companies, particularly SMEs, to look at developing their engineering apprenticeship scheme and ensuring they retain that talent. But young people, that's the other thing about Gen Zs in particular, they're desperate to keep moving up the ladder. And they will question things. And that's what's interesting about the engineering kite mark. 80% of the scoring comes from the actual engineering apprentices. So they will say whether that company's supported them. They will say how they felt as an apprentice. And it's really interesting when you see the results come through, you know, when you've worked with them, well, they do look after their apprentices, they do value them, they do put a lot into them. And, you know, you get a great apprentice. And I think that's the issue with awards. And I've really seen that. Companies don't nominate some of their apprentices for awards, because those young people that then get put up on a platform get poached.
They get a profile.
And they get a profile and they do well. And it's interesting, a lot of the JLR ones have left JLR and gone elsewhere. But it's just like, but you need to support that young person to shine. And not every young person wants a platform at all. But those that do, is it not better if they do end up moving somewhere else, but they talk about the amazing experience they had, and when they are going out with this platform, they will say, go and work for such and such, because look where I am today because of it.
Okay, that's brilliant. I've got a couple of closers.
Right, okay.
Do you consider yourself successful?
Yes, in one. I feel that I've been achieving things I wanted to achieve, and I suppose success is achievement, isn't it? And I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. So I'm not in a role that I hate. I absolutely love what I do, and I just want to make a difference. And I feel only tiny little differences, but I do feel I'm making a difference.
Okay. And the success that you've had in your career, would you attribute to luck or hard work?
Both. I work really hard, and I think that's been instilled from me from childhood. Work ethic, everyone, we work hard. My friends, family and everyone work hard. And I think it's easier to work hard in something that you enjoy. But I would never have ended up in manufacturing if it wasn't just for different things coming together and just, you know, luck really, seeing that role kind of suited. People. I was in the right time at the right thing. And so, because I would never, ever have gone into manufacturing and engineering. And that's what, you know, there's careers out there that people just don't realise. And there's so many young people would love a manufacturing engineer, but they're just not exposed to it. So that's why we need to ensure we are doing every platform, every way, so that people can get that. And, you know, we used to have these young people come through from the alternative provisions into the centre, and they were at rock bottom. They felt like failures. They'd been kicked out of school. Everyone was told them, you'll never achieve anything. You'll end up being a drug dealer, or you'll end up in a gang, and that's all you're ever going to achieve. And they'd come in and they'd see the centre, and they'd see the robots, they'd see the welding. And I've seen so many young people have light bulb moments, and it's just brilliant. But how many young people are not getting those light bulb moments because they're not getting those opportunities?
Yeah. So I've got one more. It's not normally in my list of questions, but in a couple of episodes' time, there's a business lead that's going to be sat in your seat that runs a big business. What question should I ask him around their involvement in skills?
What are you doing to ensure diversity and representation in your organisation? And it's, you know, it's ensuring from going on the website of that organisation that people can see people that look like them. It's ensuring that recruitment process is fair, open and transparent. And yeah, ensuring that they are giving opportunities to all, to neurodiverse, to GEM, to females. So yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a great guest. So there's a lot in there for people to learn about skills and diversity.
Which is, oh yeah, but yeah, we need it.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.